to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus, and joining me today is from our EBC Thailand Bureau. Hello, Faye.
Hi, I'm Faye Bartek from your EBC Thailand Bureau, bringing you the latest updates from the dynamic of ASEAN region.
On today's headlines, Indonesia's Social Affairs Minister was arrested for allegedly taking $1.2 million in bribes linked to food aid for those hit by the pandemic.
10,000 royalists turned out in Bangkok for a drone show honoring the Thai king's late father in a show of force by a monarchy under pressure following months of pro-democracy protests.
In Indonesia, the National Search and Rescue Agency said the death toll from the floods in North Sumatra province has climbed to 5.
Ang totoo po niyan,
The Iglesia ni Cristo, or INC, or Church of Christ, extended help through a lingap of Mamamayan, or Aid to Humanity, activity on Saturday, December 5, to the members of the St. Francis Mission Church in Inugay, Baras, Rizal, who were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the current onslaught of successive typhoons that hit Luzon.
First to Indonesia, where the Social Affairs Minister was arrested for allegedly taking $1.2 million in bribes linked to food aid for those hit by the coronavirus pandemic. Juliara Padubara was named as a suspect after Indonesian anti-corruption agents seized suitcases, backpacks, and envelopes stuffed with cash equivalent to $1.2 million in a sting operation on Saturday. He turned himself in on Sunday at the anti-corruption agency's headquarters, becoming the second minister in President Joko Widodo's government to be arrested over alleged graft in recent weeks. Batubara has been accused of involvement in a bribery scheme linked to one such aid project. Officials have alleged that he received more than $1 million from two contractors that were appointed to supply basic food packages for people affected by the pandemic. Now, for each package, Mr. Batubara would receive 10,000 rupiah or 71 cents, according to officials. If found guilty, he could face up to 20 years in prison and a fine of up to 1 billion rupiah or $70,000 US.
The plane carrying 1.2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines produced by Sinovac from China lands in Indonesia's capital, Jakarta. It is the first batch of vaccine arrives in the Southeast Asian region. Indonesia aims to kick off vaccinations to people in priority groups, including medical workers, public service officers, by the end of
1,2 juta dosis vaksin COVID-19. Vaksin ini buatan Sinovac. Vaksin dalam bentuk bahan baku curah yang akan diproses lebih lanjut oleh Bio Farma. Kita amat bersyukur, alhamdulillah, vaksin sudah tersedia, artinya kita bisa segera mencegah meluasnya wabah COVID-19.
Kedatangan dan ketersediaan vaksin ini secara bertahap, begitu pula pelaksanaan vaksinasi dilakukan juga secara bertahap dengan prioritas untuk tenaga kesehatan dan petugas layanan publik yang telah diatur secara teknis oleh Pak Menteri Kesehatan.
President Widodo said the vaccine has gone through clinical trials in the archipelago country, adding that the government is working to secure another 1.8 million doses by early January. Health Minister Agus Franco on December 3 shortlisted 6 COVID-19 vaccines for possible use in Indonesia. State-owned PT Biopharma, Oxford's AstraZeneca, Moderna, Pfizer, and BioNTech, and China's Sinopharm and Sinovac. Total confirmed cases in the country of 270 million people have reached 575,796, with 17,740 deaths, the highest in Southeast Asia, according to the U.S. Johns Hopkins University.
Staying in Indonesia, the National Search and Rescue Agency said the death toll from floods in North Sumatra province has now climbed to 5. Houses have been damaged, cars swept by the floodwater after torrential rain in the past few days. The Medan Regional Disaster Management Agency said heavy rainfall since Thursday night has caused 4 rivers, the Sangal, Deli, Barbura, and Denai, to overflow. It submerged nearby houses and streets. An estimated 6,000 people were affected by the floods. More than 2,700 houses were flooded in the city, which has about 2.9 million people, forcing authorities to cut off electricity and water supplies. On Friday, rescuers took 181 people to temporary shelters after floodwaters reached as high as waist deep. Floods and landslides are common in Indonesia during the rainy season. Severe flooding and landslides that hit Greater Jakarta early this year killed more than 60 people, displaced hundreds of thousands, and forced an airport to close.
The Eastern Police District is eyeing to build a command post in the eastern portion of Metro Manila to facilitate its disaster response mission.
One, how do children learn according to theory-based research? And number 2,
EPD Director Mr. Matthew Bakay said the purpose of the command post is to coordinate response before, during, and after a typhoon hits their area of jurisdiction. That includes the cities of San Juan, Pasig, Mandaluyong, and Marikina. Mr. Bakay added that he already met with Marikina Mayor Marcy Chodoro last week, where they discussed efforts to improve disaster preparedness and response. He said relief operations will be expedited as there will be better coordination and communications with affected communities once the command center is activated. He added that once the proposal is completed, this will be presented to other mayors in Eastern Metro Manila. Aside from the command post, local legislation for the funding on the disaster response was discussed. Marikina was among areas that were badly hit by flooding caused by heavy.
The Qatari people, through the Qatar Red Crescent, has donated around $250,000, approximately 12 million pesos worth of relief goods to assist in the recovery of Filipino families affected by the recent typhoon Ulysses or VAMCO. A Qatar Emirate Air Force C-17 plane transported the relief items via an air bridge established between the two states and landed at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport at around 3:56 a.m. last Friday. The Qatar Embassy in Manila said the aid was delivered under the directive of Qatar's Emir, His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad or Hamad Al Thani, in a bid to help friends in the Republic of the Philippines. The relief items include more than 40 tons of various food and non-food items, in addition to shelter, tents, water, and sanitation units, generators, and rescue boats. It will be coursed through the Philippine Red Cross to help about 2,500 families, some of whom were displaced following the typhoon's onslaught. The Qatar Qatar aid program was implemented by Qatar Charity and the Qatar Red Crescent, which in turn coordinated with the Philippine Red Cross to ensure the quick provision of aid. Its main donor was Qatar Fund for Development. During the ceremonial turnover, Philippine Red Cross Chairman Senator Richard Gordon said the donation is a testament to the volunteer organization's mutual support among members of the society.
Veteran Philippine journalist Maria Ressa asked a court on Friday to squash the second charge of cyber libel she has faced this year, in a case sparked by a screenshot of an online news article. The critic of President Rodrigo Duterte is already on bail pending on appeal against the conviction in June for the same type of offense, for which she faces up to 6 years in prison. Ressa and her news site Rappler face at least a dozen criminal charges and probes after publishing stories critical of the Duterte government, including its bloody war on drugs that has killed thousands. Ex-Rappler journalist Reynaldo Santos was also found guilty in the previous case. Ressa, a former CNN journalist, described the latest cyber label charge as crazy and dangerous. The charge, which prosecutors filed on November 23, stems from a complaint by businessman Wilfredo King over Ressa's tweet on 29 over a screenshot of a 2002 story published by Philstar.com about the news site removed the article after the camp or Mr. Wilfredo King raised the possibility of legal action. Philstar.com said last year. It's crazy that I have to face a criminal case for tweeting a screen grab of newspaper articles, Ressa told journalists after appearing in court Friday. By any stretch of the imagination that stress off, that's why we have a motion to quash. Ressa, who Time magazine named as a Person of the Year in 2018, has asked the court to dismiss the charge on the grounds she cannot be liable for sharing a screenshot of news story she didn't write. This is a bad precedent for social media, for Twitter, she said. This is very dangerous. Ressa's June conviction also stemmed from a complaint made by King in 2017 over a Rappler story 5 years earlier about his alleged ties to a judge on the nation's top court. The cyber libel charges against Ressa were made under a controversial cybercrime statute aimed to online offenses, such as stalking and child pornography.
To reports now that Bangladesh authorities have moved Rohingya refugees who fled Myanmar to an island in the Bay of Bengal. Nearly 900,000 Rohingya refugees live in the Cox's Bazar settlements. In 2017, hundreds of thousands fled violence in neighboring Myanmar following a reported military clearance operation in August of 2017, during which numerous alleged human rights abuses were committed. In a statement, the UN office in Bangladesh said that it had not been involved in preparations for the movement of nor the identification of refugees to the new destination, Basan Char. It added that refugees who choose to move there, quote, should have basic rights and services on the island, unquote, and these should include freedom of movement to and from the Bangladesh mainland, as well as access to education, health care, and work. Now, these would help to lay the foundations for a productive and secure community on the island, the UN office said, before noting that comprehensive protection assessments should be carried out on Basan Char before any relocation happens.
At the Integrated Waste Management Corporation in Traffic Martires City, Cavite, President Rodrigo Duterte emphasized his administration's war against drugs as he recently led the destruction of 7.51 billion worth of confiscated illegal drugs and vowed to spend the remaining year of his term battling illegal drugs.
The destruction of these assorted drugs is an affirmation of our determination to put an end to this menace that has caused immeasurable harm to millions of individual users, destroyed countless families, and continue to threaten the moral fabric of our society. Let me take this opportunity to acknowledge the coordinated efforts of PDEA and the PNP, which led the seizure of more than 7 billion pesos worth of dangerous drugs that we destroy today. This adds up to more than 56 billion worth of illegal drugs that were already seized after more than 180 anti-illegal drug operations since the beginning of my administration. We will continue to work even harder, not only to suppress the supply of narcotics in our streets, but also to prevent our country from being used as a transshipment point for illegal drug trade in the Asia-Pacific region.
President Duterte, who was elected in 2016 by a popular vote, had made in his campaign promise to fight crime, corruption, and illegal drugs. In his campaign, he claimed that he could eradicate illegal drugs in 6 months. Once in office, however, he said the drug problem in the country was much bigger and more complicated than he first thought. A total of 1,333 kilos of methamphetamine hydrochloride, or the shabu, marijuana, liquid marijuana, ecstasy, cocaine, and other dangerous substances were destroyed through thermal decomposition. The 75-year-old Philippine leader also called on law enforcers and drug operatives to redouble their efforts in fighting the destruction of the assorted drugs, with an affirmation of the administration's determination to put an end to the drug menace that harmed millions of voters, destroyed countless families, and continues to threaten the society.
And staying in the Philippines, President Duterte said the Philippines wants a comprehensive and inclusive recovery plan in which no country will be left behind. He said this, the pandemic also, he said, has shown that our societies are connected through digital means. He said that we can achieve more prosperity if everyone will come together, be united against the fight on COVID-19. Let's listen in.
The end of this pandemic is still difficult to see. Yet the broad outlines of the horizon are breaking through. It is never too early to think of a bouncing back strategy. The Philippines aims for a comprehensive and inclusive recovery with no one left behind. We are using all available socioeconomic instruments to protect our hard-won gains in development. Our recovery plan is built on solid macroeconomic and fiscal fundamentals, with a funding allocation equivalent to 9.1% of GDP. Let us use this opportunity to establish a new normal, using lessons from the crisis. Lockdowns have forced us to take full advantage of technology and innovation. It has sped up the adoption of e-commerce, e-learning, video conferencing, and artificial intelligence. Inadvertently, this pandemic has opened greener and more resilient pathways of growth and development. It has also laid bare how interconnected our societies have become.
Customs officers on Friday seized over 35,000 tablets of illegal drugs worth 1.8 million pesos at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. In a statement, the Bureau of Customs, or the BOC, said officers discovered a total of 35,345 diazepam, or the volume, and nitrazepam mogedam tablets during an inspection and examination of parcels in a cargo warehouse at the airport. Records show the cargo was shipped by a certain Mustafa and brother from Pakistan and was misdeclared as healthcare product. The diazepam volume, or nitrazepam mogedam, are considered as highly regulated drugs due to their addictive properties and characteristics, as stated in the 1971 United Nations Legal Convention on Psychotropic Substances. The seized tablets were turned over to the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, or the PDEA, on Friday for further investigation, case profiling, and build-up against personalities involved in unlawful and fraudulent.
To other news now, Vietnam will conduct the first phase of human trials of a locally made COVID-19 vaccine from December 10. That is according to the Minister of Health, Nguyen Thanh Long, at a meeting with Vietnamese vaccine producers on December 5. To date, Vietnamese producers have worked to accelerate the research of the COVID-19 vaccines with IVAC, Vibiotech, and Nanogen, completing production process at laboratory scale. And currently, they're also evaluating the vaccine's safety and immunity in animals. Meanwhile, Nanogen is now ready to pilot the first phase of human trial. Nanogen will join hands with the Military Medical University to recruit volunteers for the first phase of clinical trial. This will be on December 10. At the meeting, experts and vaccine producers discussed the progress of vaccine production and challenges during the development, as well as outline solutions for the time ahead, laying stress on the significance of the production of COVID-19 vaccines. Mr. Long said the ministry has promoted domestic research and production while enhancing cooperation with international vaccine developers so as to gain early access to vaccine sources. He also urged local vaccine producers to speed up their work in order to launch human trials soon and pledge support for the producers, including minimizing administrative procedures and facilitating product registration and licensing.
Turuan din natin ang mga bata ng tamang paghugas ng mga kamay. Basain ang kamay ng tubig at lagyan ng sabon. Kuskusin ang iyong mga palad. Gayon din ang pagitan ng mga daliri. Pati na ang likod ng mga palad at daliri. Ganon din ang iyong hinlalaki, kasama ang mga dulo ng iyong mga daliri. Pagkatapos ay iyong kalapulsuhan. Gawin ito ng kahit 20 segundo. Pagkatapos ay banlawan ng tubig at patuyuin.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Heading over here in Bangkok, Thailand, some 10,000 royalists turned out in Bangkok for a show honoring the Thai king's late father. In a show of force by a monarchy under pressure following months of pro-democracy protests.
Everybody is son and daughter of the king. Anything with her, you guys fight. The more hurt more is the king. We all love the king, then we are the Thai people. Even whatever you say.
มันเป็นรากเหง้าของคนไทยอ่ะที่เรารักมากเพราะพวกเราได้เห็นการกระทำของน้องๆพวกเรารับไม่ได้น้องๆอยากจะให้น้องๆกลับไปคิดใหม่เถอะลูก
Since July, demonstrators have made unprecedented calls to reform Thailand's monarchy, a taboo-smashing demand in a country where the ultra-wealthy royal family has long been untouchable. The Saturday saw the king's supporters turn out in force, wearing yellow and touching portraits of royal family members as they gathered for a candlelight ceremony and drone display at the Sanam Luang field outside the Grand Palace in Bangkok. Many chanted, "Long live the king," as they waited for Maha Vajiralongkorn and Queen Safida. Saturday marked the birthday of the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej, who died in 2016 and was widely revered in Thailand. Tens of thousands of prisoners received royal pardons or had their jail terms reduced to mark the occasion, which falls on the same date as Father's Day in Thailand. Some attendees cried as the late king's face was projected into the sky with synchronized drones. But pro-democracy supporters took to Twitter questioning why Father's Day was linked to the monarchy under a top trending hashtag. The 68-year-old ruler sits at the apex of Thai power, and analysts estimate the royal family's wealth to be between 50 to 70 billion US dollars.
In Cambodia, the Ministry of Health has issued new rules for measures relating to the entry of visitors to Cambodia from December 12 onwards. Now, the latest rules mean the end of the sponsorship scheme, which had previously allowed investors, business people, company employees, experts, and technicians to be guaranteed by a sponsoring company or organization and therefore self-quarantine at a place of their choice, rather than spend 14 days in a government-chosen hotel and have to pay a $2,000 deposit. All visitors to Cambodia will now be required to undergo the mandatory quarantine under government supervision and pay an upfront deposit to authorities to guarantee they adhere to guidelines and also to cover the cost of their accommodation and testing over the 2-week period. This latest move comes in response to the November 28 community incident. The latest cluster, which the Cambodian government calls the November 28 incident, has seen malls and cinemas closed, weddings and gatherings of more than 20 banned for 2 weeks, and schools shutting for the rest of the year.
The Straits Times reported that Singapore said it will keep searching for possibilities of travel bubbles with other regions even after an arrangement with Hong Kong suffered a setback. Transport Minister Ong Ye Kung said potential partners could be the countries where the city-state has already opened its borders to. Singapore currently allows short-term visitors from Australia, Brunei, China, New Zealand, and Vietnam to enter without having to be quarantined, though they must be tested upon arrival. The Singapore-Hong Kong travel bubble was delayed after a surge in cases in Hong Kong. It was initially set for November 22. The arrangement was heralded as a pandemic world first, allowing people to travel to and from the two places without the need for quarantine. It will now be reviewed between December 25 and the new year.
Says the best defense is still containment.
We are in uncharted territory.
Kailan volume 450. Tayo mo to 100%. Dami pa. Pero yung consumption eh.
Sa mundong waring walang puwang para sa kanilang pagmamahalan, sapat ba ang tibok ng kanilang mga puso upang bumuo ng daigdig nilang sarili? Inihahandog ng Eagle Broadcasting Corporation ang kauna-unahang romantic teleserye ng Net25. Ang daigdig ko'y ikaw. Tuwing Sabado, 8:08 ng gabi, dito lamang sa Net25.
At ako'y laging sa'yo hanggang magpakailanman.
Hey there! California Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net 25.
Welcome back in ASEAN in Focus. Now let's go over ahead to Malaysia. In a backroom workshop in Malaysia, goldsmiths with blow torches and chisels sit at wooden desks as they melt and mold the precious metal into glittery jewelry.
Perkembangan dunia emas selepas COVID adalah lebih baik oleh kerana satu dunia tahu ekonomi tidak stabil.
Wanita semestinya memang untuk kecantikan, tetapi sebenarnya manfaat kita membeli emas ni dia lebih kepada pelaburan kita di masa akan datang.
Dekat dunia ni semakin up, jadi orang dah buka mata daripada menyimpan duit di bank, dia orang lebih baik membeli emas.
Going back here in Thailand, authorities in Thailand found a severe tiger's head when they raided a fake zoo near the country's border with Laos that has suspected links to an illegal wildlife trafficking racket. Officials seized 5 live tigers at the Mukda Tiger Park and farm, which have been sent to a wildlife sanctuary, while other tiger parts were also discovered. The site in the northeastern province of Mukdahan had claimed 6 cubs were born at the facility 5 years ago, but DNA tests have been confirmed the 5 sea tigers and the captivated animals were not related to the others at the park. This has raised suspicions that the zoo was being used as a holding facility for wildlife being smuggled into Laos and Vietnam. The zoo's owner was not present during the raid on Monday and was wanted for questioning, the official said. The zoo had 28 tigers in 2013, and 5 years later, the population had jumped to 50. According to conservation group Wildlife Friends Foundation Thailand, but by 2020, the number of tigers was down to 25. Southeast Asia is a key battleground in the fight to save the big cats. These numbers globally have plummeted from about 100,000 a century ago to fewer than 4,000 today. High demand for tiger pelts and body parts in China and Vietnam fuels cow chain. The body parts are used in traditional Chinese medicine. And in Indonesia, every year, pounding rains wash away mountains of plastic waste from the streets of Jakarta, with some of it ending up as far away as Bali's beaches. So scientists are turning to satellites to trace the rubbish and figure out how to tackle the problem.
better understanding where those plastic or beaching or going, it's going to help them a lot on prioritizing their action. For instance, if they have to purchase a dam at the river, so we know which river is a very high priority in terms of environmental impact, in terms of biodiversity impact, and where to put the money first, I would like to say.
And the most important from this is we're not just taking the marine debris, we also taking the marine mammals. So we know when the mammals, when the marine debris movement has inbound with the mammal migrations. That's the most important.
And finally, in our news, the Iglesia ni Cristo, or INC, or Church of Christ, extended help through a Lingap sa Mamamayan, or Aid to Humanity activity last Saturday, December 5, to the members of the St. Francis of Assisi Mission Church in Pinugay, Baras, Rizal. They were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as they are affected by the pandemic, as well as the recent onslaught of successive typhoons that hit Luzon. The leaders of the religious group sent a letter to the INC Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, asking for 1,000 relief bags to be given to its mission members. And the INC immediately responded and conducted its outreach activity where 3,000 goodwill bags were given to the priests of the St. Francis of Assisi for distribution to its members. Let's take a look.
Ang totoo po niyan, ang hinihingi lang pong tulong nung yung mga tagapagturo nga po yun ng relihiyon na ating tinulungan ngayon ay 1,000 mahigit lang po eh. Pero palibhasa talagang ang pamamahala, ganong kabilis tumugon at ang pagmamahal ay pinadama. 3,000 pong goodie bags ang pinamahal. Dinoble po yung kanilang kiniling na maitulong sa kanila. Kaya sabi po nila, hindi lang po yung lugar na yun ang pwedeng tulungan, pati yung phase 4, phase 5 nilang mga kasama, aabutin din po ng tulong.
Magandang akyan, magandang activity in the sense na wala din kayong pili pala. Before, parang nag-aalangan tayo kahit magkwentuhan man lang because of, particularly to Executive Minister Eduardo Manalo, malaking pasasalamat ang gusto namin ipahayag sa kanya because he approved our request. I directed my request and letter to Eduardo, and we're happy that he opened his arms to us.
Maraming salamat po sa pamunuan ng Iglesia ni Cristo sa programang ito, Lingap para sa Mamamayan. Sana hindi lang dito magtatapos yung pagbibigay tulong sa mga nangangailangan. Sana patuloy ito. Okay? At maraming salamat at napagbigyan yung komunidad ng Orthodox dito sa Southville 9, Pinugay, Baras, Rizal.
Recently, the Iglesia ni Cristo also conducted a worldwide Aid to Humanity where church members help their fellow men in various countries where the INC has established its presence. This was done worldwide on October 31 to mark the birthday of INC Executive Minister Brother Eduardo Manalo. The INC has established its presence in 158 countries and territories and counts as its members 147 various races and nationalities worldwide. Thank you, Faye, for joining me today and helping me out here on ASEAN in Focus. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you also, Alma. And that's the latest news around ASEAN region. This is Faye Barze, and we always live in interesting times.
And I'm Alma Angeles. We'll see you back tomorrow. We live in interesting times.